The opinions or beliefs expressed in this podcast do not necessarily represent the opinions or beliefs of the Church of God or Lee University. For more information, contact Steve Hall at shall@leeuniversity.edu. Welcome to the Charismatic Contemplative Podcast, where the fast and loud embraces the slow and quiet.
Welcome to the Charismatic Contemplative Podcast, hosted by Lee University and sponsored by the School of Theology and Ministry. It is our interest in blending these mostly perceived incongruent perspectives, such as charismatic and contemplative. They're typically seen as very disparate from each other. But I see the soul as like a transmission. Who would want a transmission in a car that only has low gears or slow gears? Who would want a transmission in a car that only has high or fast gears? So this is really an attempt to bring together the best of the contemplative and the best of the charismatic into one soul transmission, both low, slow gears and high and fast gears and everything in between. Because charismatics are usually seen as loud and fast. Contemplatives are generally seen as slow and quiet. The idea is not to remain disintegrated, but to integrate those two things together to be the best Christian we can be, the best minister we can be, the best worship director we can be. And with that worship director comment, I want to introduce you to a couple guests I have today that are going to be talking about what it means to blend charismatic and contemplative worship together. These two folks I've gotten to know at a local church here in Cleveland, Tennessee called Matthew's Table. And when I first experienced Matthew's Table, I was really amazed at the natural, comfortable integration of both charismatic and contemplative elements in the range of the worship service experience. So I'm looking forward to talking with y'all today. We've got with us today Dr. Rusty Langford, who is the pastor, the lead pastor at Matthew's Table. And then also we've got Melanie Minay that is here today also with us. She's the worship director for Pastor Rusty. And so to give us a little background about you, Rusty, tell us a little about where you come from and where you're at.
Yeah, I've been pastor since we started our church about 10 years ago, planted here in Cleveland, and did education most recently at Richmond Graduate University with a doctorate in spiritual formation. And as you said, I'm one of the pastors at Matthew's Table Church.
Yeah. Melanie, how about you? What's your trajectory?
Well, I came to Cleveland in 2013 to go to Lee and graduated in 2017. And during that time, I met Rusty, and he asked if I wanted to be a part of planting Matthew's Table in 2016. So I've been there since then, and I've been the director of music and liturgy there for about 10 years.
I love that. I don't know if everybody heard that, but the director of music and liturgy. But you gotta give a little insight here. You are Church of God.
I grew up Pentecostal.
Yeah, grew up Pentecostal, charismatic in the whole realm of things, and then ended up director of worship and liturgy. Is that worship?
Yeah, music and liturgy.
Music and liturgy. So give us a little bit of perspective of how you came up with the idea of, I think I want to blend these two together.
Well, personally, I definitely grew up in that charismatic environment in church, and that was like very normal for me. And when I came to Lee, I began to learn just from different faith traditions and was kind of going through my own journey in my faith. And I began to, learn more about Christian history. And just through different experiences in my college years, just began to appreciate, things from the historical church and like hymns. And whenever Rusty asked me to be a part of Matthew's table. We were just talking about how like our Sunday gatherings might look, and mentioned that he would like it to be a more liturgical service. Wow. But I knew that we were also like a continuationist, discipleship-oriented, community-oriented church, but also wanted to incorporate the liturgy aspect, which I thought was neat and kind of like where I was in that time personally as well.
Good.
So,
yeah, thank you for that. A little bit of understanding, because people might just assume you've always been in the contemplative stream and liturgical stream, but yet you're coming from what most people consider the opposite end of the spectrum. And that's what this podcast is all about, a sense of integration of the two. So, Rusty, you said to Melanie, hey, we'd like you to think about helping us out in our liturgy. How did you, as a pastor, come to this place? And I think you're Baptist background, right?
Yes.
Baptist background. You're like somewhere in the middle. You know, you're not necessarily contemplative, not charismatic. You're Baptist in the middle. How did you do this?
Yeah, I think theologically, in some ways, some might seem kind of all over the place, but yet had a strong conviction for a theologically robust gathering that was scriptural and contemplative, but also we said early on that we were wanting to be liturgical charismatics.
Oh my gosh.
And so, which maps on a lot to your language of a contemplative charismatic. And so we just, it was just a gift to have Melanie, but our church has people from many traditions, a lot of them from more or less charismatic backgrounds, but also who are seeking to be formed as disciples. And so, liturgy, I'm sure y'all have covered this before, meaning like work of the people, is we wanted to structure our gathering around the idea that people aren't coming for an entertainment time, that there's not just a few paid professionals who are going to kind of get up and entertain people, but people are going to participate. And we wanted that participation to be both spontaneous and structured. So charismatic and liturgical. And so that flowed right out of a lot of our convictions that the church is not a place, it's not a personality or just a group of professionals, but it is the people. And so, yeah, early on, we were just kind of praying, what would it look like for this to both be highly organic, but also organized, spirit-led, structured, science, art, and yet, it be just very much shaped around seeing people formed.
I love this idea of spontaneity and structure, because that's typically the ends of the spectrum, whereas contemplatives would be highly ordered, highly structured in whatever they're doing, whereas Pentecostals often, in my opinion, because I is one, I can talk about them, I can talk about the idea that Pentecostals often aspire to this utter spontaneity. We have no bounds. We're not confined by liturgy or any of that structure. But yet every Pentecostal church that I know uses planning center. It has all of the timings worked out in it. So they got their own liturgy and order themselves, one prelude, announcements, 3 fast songs, 2 you know what I'm talking about, that liturgy. And so Pentecostals often kind of assume that they're that, but they're really not. They're actually really structured as well. So you said liturgy is the work of the people. My background in liturgy is to define it more like James K. Smith defines it. Like he says that liturgy is simply order. It's pattern. And you could say liturgy is like brushing your teeth. You have a particular way you brush your teeth. You either wet the toothbrush before you put the paste on, or you put the paste on and then you wet your toothbrush. And it's the same thing all the time. The way in which we cook, or the way in which we comb our hair, or whatever it might be. It's always order. He even says that we are homo liturgicus, that we are creatures of habit. But you say that's critical for formation. So how do you, at Matthew's table, from a pastor's perspective, hold in tension this spontaneity and structure, yet with your exegetical Baptist expository preaching style? How do you do that?
Yeah, well, we one the main way that we structure our service liturgically is in view of the story of God. And so to liturgy, James K. Smith, we've read and worked through his stuff as a staff as well. And so we often say that we're a story-formed people.
Wow.
And the stories that shape our lives, give our lives meaning and order. And so our liturgy, our order of service is shaped around the four broad movements of the story of God. So creation, fall, redemption, new creation, or some would say restoration. And so every week we're creating this service, this order that we hope is a weekly reorientation for people to come and repeat the gospel story together. And so that's highly important to us. And Melanie even has those movements changing at the bottom of the slides as we go through the gathering, so people kind of know where they're at. And we're hoping that recalibrates people to go out into their everyday lives and continue to live in light of that true and better story versus the stories they're getting, whether his mall stuff might be outdated now, but whether that's at the mall, the songs they're listening to, the TV shows they watch, that this bigger, truer, better story is what's shaping them.
Say those four movements again, and then once again, describe how you as pastor dictate their movement in the service.
Okay, so it'd be creation, fall, redemption, new creation. And so, to get more detailed on that, and Melanie's the one who's makes all this happen and does all the work.
So should I ask Melanie?
You can ask her, or I don't know if you want me to go for it.
Let's get away from the theoretician.
Yes, yeah.
Let's get to the practitioner.
Yeah, she could tell you.
How do you, as a music and liturgy minister, and would you consider yourself that's a new way of looking at worship, pastor?
I guess for our church, yeah.
She's a deacon.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then how do you take those four movements and with spontaneity and structure, how do you form up a service?
Yeah, so with creation, that's kind of like the beginning of the story of God. And it begins with God. And, in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. And so in that movement, we focus a lot on who God is and his character. And we have our call to worship. So our call to worship, God is the one that calls us to worship him. So we will usually have like a psalm or a reading that focuses on, coming together to worship God.
All right, let me push pause for a second there, because you talked about that Matthew's Table worship service, this blend of charismatic and contemplative, is not based upon any personality or program. It's based upon participation of the people in the service. And so this is my experience, just my experience. I don't have any empirical research for this. But I usually end up in worship services looking around. I'm just looking around at the people. And what I see in most, what I would say, contemporary charismatic services that I'm typically in, I look around and I see between 40 and 60 people, 60% of the people not engaged. Because the lights go down in the audience, the lights come up on the stage, all the worship team comes out, and everybody's in the audience is typically watching those folks on the stage perform or do their thing. And solos happen, and that's when 60 to 70% of the people don't participate. And then even when the group comes back in, all voices are singing, it's generally 40% not participating. And that has always broken my heart in my own church and the churches I've attended. So that call to worship, tell me how that works with the audience.
Yeah, so we typically have someone that's leading our liturgy readings. So we have, just like we have songs with the lyrics on the screen, we will have our readings, our scripture readings on the screen. So the leader will read the whole thing, but then there's underlined portions that the whole congregation responds with.
Okay.
So that's one way that we are able to get everyone to participate in that part of the gathering.
Okay, great. Go on. I'll try not to interrupt anymore, but it's just, it's so rich.
Can I give one thing here?
Yeah, please.
And this again is Melanie's executing and doing, but just to add to what she said, she has created also, which you find this in many other traditions, but even when people are entering the space through our main door, there's a little sign she's put on a table and a bowl of water that says, "Remember your baptism."
Really?
And so I can't remember your exact wording on there, but it's basically like, no matter how bad your week's been, remember you're entering this space as a beloved child of God. So that's the first, when people are coming in, orienting them to who God is in that way and who they are. And then, partially because of our church culture, but also because of intentionality, is Melanie has a slide that's like, we've started. We've not started, but we've started.
You've not started up front from a microphone.
Yeah.
But are you saying, is that to indicate that worship has started, or?
Like, yes, in your fellowship. So this is intentional time to come in, remember your baptism, and remember your belonging.
In remembering your baptism, do they do anything with the water, or just look at it and just remember? Is it a visual, or is it participation in it or somehow? Or
It's optional is what I would say, but
You can just look at it, like look at the water, or some people will like dip their finger in or do like a sign of the cross.
yeah.
It's
But
whatever they want.
It's just really,
Yeah.
there's the spontaneity,
Yeah.
structure, but spontaneity to allow people to make it their own.
Yes, and you can watch people, like you said, you're watching, you can see people come in and stop there and almost just like their shoulders drop as they're being reminded, like, no matter what mess I was or who I yelled at getting ready or whatever to get here, this is who I am, and now I'm here to engage and respond to God's invitation. So
It's
go ahead,
already
Melanie.
started.
Yeah.
That slide, it's already started. Wow, that's cool.
Yeah, so we enter in the call to worship, and we're engaging through reading and responding together, and we have a moment of prayer, and then we usually have a song that's focused on God's character and who he is. And then after that movement, we go to a time of kind of more confessional time, which is the fall movement, where we take time to recognize, in light of who God is, we see who we are, and that we are fallen and broken, wounded human beings. And that's just like the reality of the story of God, like with Adam and Eve in the garden, like their rebellion against God. And that's something that is still happening today.
And are you saying the congregation actually participates, or someone stands up at the mic and reads it? Or does the congregation speak it?
So we will usually we will transition from like the first song, and the second song is a little more like reflective.
Okay.
Or even a confessional type song. And even on like the bottom of the screen, like Rusty was saying, we will move, it'll be in the fall portion. So kind of visually, people will see that we are in that part of the gathering. But after that song, the liturgy reader will come back up and lead us in a time of corporate confession. And that will, either I will write it, or it will come from like a Book of Common Prayer or another resource, or like an ancient prayer, that we will respond with like the underlined portions on the screen. So that is like kind of an out loud together confession. And then after we say that prayer together, there will be a moment of silence in the congregation, and people will kneel or bow their head or close their eyes to like ask the Spirit just like things that he might want to highlight to us areas of sin or suffering or woundedness that we need to bring to him.
Is someone guiding people in that prayer when they kneel? Okay, if you want to take time to kneel down or be silent, is anyone leading them or directing them?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so the liturgy reader in the microphone, will just say a few words that will guide that time. And it's usually different every time. So.
Wow, so that's, again, spontaneous, a bit inspirational, and this is time for silence.
Mm-hmm.
Silence, that's... You guys have silence in your church?
We do, yeah.
We do. Yeah.
It's unique.
Yeah.
That's the reason why I bring it up and make such a point of it, is that it's just so unusual to have planning center, say silence.
Mm-hmm.
Like Melanie said, people, because of our encouragement of the charismatic aspects, although in our church you'll find people all over the continuum even of their theology around those things, is we encourage physical postures of praise and prayer. And so we've even had a resource Melanie's created, and it may still be back there. We may need to print some more, where, I just brought it here, where it just has scriptures where we sing, we speak aloud, we bow, we stand, we prostrate, we dance, we kneel, we lift hands, we clap. And I could do a lot more, but we're not telling people, now do this. Well, we do ask them to lift their hands at the end. But we've had it at times where, you, again, if you look out the side of your eye or whatever, you don't know what posture you make. And so that's, again, another example of that contemplative, charismatic. We're not choreographing it, but we are creating a space for people to respond spontaneously within the structure of the service.
So you're not saying, okay, everybody clap to the Lord, or give an applause to the Lord, or everybody dance, everybody raise your hands. You're not saying that, but you're saying this is an opportunity for you to express yourself in worship. Am I hearing that correctly? Mm-hmm. And then this is actually intentional, where you're giving them a piece of paper that's describing various ways of bodily expression?
Yes, and depending on your background, you might come into our church on a certain day and be like, that didn't seem very charismatic to me. Or you might come another time and you might be like, that didn't seem very contemplative to me. It's just, it depends on who's there with what gifts and what the Spirit's up to that day.
Again, there's a spontaneity in structure. There's space for silence, space for expression, bodily expression of worship. Mm-hmm. There's just space for it. And you're inviting them to go ahead and participate in that way.
Yes.
What else? How does the service flow from there?
Yeah, so we'll take a moment of silent reflection before the Lord. And typically after that, there'll be like another prayer or some words spoken to kind of gather everyone back together. And then I guess directly after our time of confession, we want to hear a gospel assurance. So we're not left in our sin or our woundedness, our brokenness. There's always good news for us as a people of God. So there'll usually be like a New Testament reading, just that we will read together, like a responsive reading from, Ephesians or Romans, just about God's love through Christ and his sacrifice for us. And then typically there will be a song to go along with that, that theme.
And is that how it wraps up, or?
So after that, one of our pastors will come up and we will engage with what's called Pass the Peace.
Yes.
And which is part of the redemption part of the story, the gospel assurance and the Pass the Peace. And so the pastor will say, the peace of Christ be with you. And we will say, and also with you. And then people will pass the peace to one another, shaking hands or, just greeting each other. And that's part of our unity and peace that we have together with Christ. So we are actively engaging tangibly in that peace that we have, that we sang about and that we read about. And then during that time as well, we will sing the Apostles' Creed every Sunday. So that's just another way that we can, I don't know, it's an easy way to memorize a creed is through singing it. And I think it's probably stuck in our heads at this point. But
And you do that every Sunday?
Yeah.
Wow, how boring. Why do you repeat it? Why do you do that? What's the repetition about? Either one of you.
Melanie touched on it, but again, viewing our service as like this gospel of the kingdom reorientation.
Yeah.
It's when we sing that every week, we're reminded that the kingdom of God is much bigger than Matthew's Table Church. And, for those of us, particularly whether it's from Pentecostal or Baptist backgrounds, when we say the Holy Catholic Church, what we mean by that is the Holy Global Church, the historical church, the universal church. And so we want to repeat that every week. We know as a part of our discipleship, particularly in the religious South, is there's a lot of tribalism. There's a lot of competition amongst churches and various things. And so we sing that every week intentionally so that we're just reminded this is way bigger than us. We don't have a corner on the kingdom. And also our kids have come up at that point, and they're kind of leading us in that. And so that's a offshoot kind of other positive of hopefully they're learning that from a young age.
Melanie, you were going to say, you were talking about the Apostles' Creed. Is this where the children come up in the service to be dismissed?
Yeah.
Or is it before that?
During the Pass the Peace time, people are like talking and moving around the room. And I think just at this point, the kids just know that it's their time to come up to the front.
It's just been so repetitive. It's just done. It's muscle memory. It's worship service muscle memory for them.
Yeah. And so we'll sing the Apostles' Creed together. And during that time, the kids still stay up at the front. And we'll have another moment of walking through something to memorize. So at this point in the year, we're memorizing together the Lord's Prayer.
Okay.
So we'll just take a small portion of it each month and repeat it. And the kids will say it, and then the whole congregation will repeat after. So, yeah.
And again, there's that participation. Children are leading, and then congregation is following with reinforcement of that. Yeah, I'm just loving that. What's next?
So at that point, the children can go on to, if they have class that day, they'll go to their children's class. And then at that point, Rusty or whoever's preaching that day will come and teach from the Word. And that is included in the redemption part. Okay. Because we do really want to be focused on, a gospel-centric message every Sunday. You probably always hit each point of the story in the sermons, but always kind of coming to a climax at like the gospel and the good news that we have through Christ. And then that usually segues into the time at the Lord's table. Okay. So we take communion every Sunday, and the way that we do that is we have multiple tables around the room with the communion elements and a leader at every table. And we just have a time of sharing just anything that the Spirit might have highlighted to anyone during the sermon, or just anything that has happened during the week that someone wants to share, or have a time for prayer and like ministry around the table. And
as I've experienced that, each table has an elder attached to that table generally, or a pastor or somebody?
Not necessarily. It just has a leader. Melanie, again, lines that up.
Okay, you have a leader at each of those tables. And as I've been there before, there's been like a dozen or more of those little high-top tables around with the elements on it, very attractive, very nicely set up. And then there's someone there that will facilitate. How does that, tell me what that facilitation looks like. Because you're saying everybody in the congregation, guest or anybody that's come today, just goes to those tables.
Yeah. So Rusty will normally give a little bit of direction before we all head to the table. So especially like new people might kind of get some of the gist of what we're getting ready to do. But yeah, the leaders at the table, we've had like trainings in the past, and to just help those leaders know or kind of follow a similar format of how to facilitate those table times. But yeah, they'll usually just say a few words at the beginning of this time to kind of guide what's going on, and just open it up for people to share.
Yes, and your people are not uncomfortable with silence. It doesn't seem like it. Because you step up to that table, and this is several times now that I've done this, and the elder or somebody, the leader, would say, does anyone have anything you want to share? Or from the sermon, maybe something you gleaned or had insight, or maybe you just want to share a request, and then they'll just, it's okay. They can just wait in silence. It's fascinating to me. I love that.
Yeah, and at my table, a lot of times, we'll just say that out loud. It's like, hey, this might feel awkward for you, awkward silence.
Thank you for normalizing that, yes.
And it's like, this is a time, though, for you. Try not and lean into that silence and attune to what the Spirit would want to say to you right now.
Wow.
So arguably, although all of our service fits the charismatic contemplative in some ways, this is a space where if you wanted to use this language of like prophetic gifting.
Okay, please, yeah.
Sometimes I hear a better sermon than I preached around the communion table.
From someone just reflecting what they heard?
Yes, and Melanie has a slide too up here if anybody needs it, but basically like during this time you're asking, Holy Spirit, do you have a word of confession, but also do you have a word of encouragement? Is there an image that might be brought to mind?
Yeah.
Is there a scripture?
Real word of knowledge type stuff. You're the Spirit lead.
Yeah, and we'll give some structure around that. We're like, this isn't a space for confrontation.
Yes.
But it is a space for ministry of the Spirit. And so if someone shares, you don't got to look at the leader and be like, can I say something? Like, if someone asks for prayer, Melanie's been good at encouraging our leaders, like, hey, let's pray for them on the spot.
Yeah.
And so we'll pray, and and you just don't ever know what's going to happen. And so from our Baptistic heritage, I say this is like the invitation, and that's maybe true in a Pentecostal background as well.
We would call it altar call.
Yeah, so this is the altar call time, so to speak. And so we're not in any hurry, because when I was growing up, it was like the longer that lasts, that was good.
Yes, positive.
Yeah, and so we can sit in silence. We can wait for the Spirit, and whether we'll say, you don't have to share, but just be encouraged by God right now. But we'd love for you to share. And so, yeah, I may have said too much about that.
Well, let me stick with that for just a minute, because this will be important for any ministers that are watching, or worship leaders, ministers of music and liturgy that would do that. But you do see this time of communion, you wrap up the sermon, and then instead of having all these people come to the front and maybe you pray with them, you're inviting them to disperse to the tables, and this is that altar call invitational moment. Am I hearing that correctly?
It's analogous to that. Yeah, it's a time to respond, but again, with the bread and the cup, they're reminding that, responding in the safety and security of the finished work of Christ.
Okay, so tell me a little bit, speak to the evangelist in me who wants to know, okay, well, when do you lead them in the sinner's prayer? Or how do you see that as lead pastor? Where is the moment, where somebody begins to follow Christ and sing Just As I Am, all that stuff?
Yeah, well, sometimes, not every week, we will introduce it like, we will say, if you're here and you're a follower of Jesus, we invite you to come and partake of the bread and the cup. If you're not, we call you to come to Christ.
Wow, okay.
And there will be somebody at your table that would be willing to engage you around that if you want to share, or afterwards you could come and speak with me. But one thing, and we might get to this later, but I'll go ahead and say it, is one of the reasons we do this is we're trying also to equip our people in what we call gospel fluency. We want everyone to be able to share the gospel
I love that word.
naturally. And so we're not artificially doing this, but in a sense, every week during this time, people are getting an opportunity to both confess and share the gospel with one another.
Yeah. Even during the service, as the flow of the service goes on, there's confession, there's grace and assurance, and yeah.
And this is an opportunity for that to actually be practiced.
Wow. Okay. I love it. Melanie, what's next? What happens?
Yeah, so after we remember the finished work of Christ through communion, we'll head back to our seats and have a moment for another song. And that portion of the gathering, the Lord's table is kind of like a hinge from the redemption part of the story to restoration or like new creation. Like through the work of Christ, we are new creations. And there is more to the story to come in the future that hasn't happened yet. But in this age of the church, we are bringing God's kingdom to earth. And so moving on from communion, we kind of step into, that new creation, restoration, kind of sending portion of the gathering.
So at the very end, there's a sense of sending?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, so typically the song will focus more on maybe like a response to the good news that we've heard throughout the gathering, specific to like the theme that we've been talking about and singing about that day. And then after the song, a pastor or a leader will come up to, I guess, kind of say some concluding words and just remind the church and the congregation there that this isn't the only thing that is church, but like we are the church.
Wow.
And and that as we go on from here, we are going to be the church in our everyday spaces of life. So we end with just reminding people of our community groups that we have and different ways to engage life in community and life on mission throughout the week. And we have a sending verse or like a sending kind of like benediction reading. And the leader will ask everyone to raise their right hand and just read the verse, and everyone says amen at the end. And we're sent as a church. So that's kind of the end of the gathering.
So you have a slide that says, it started when you first walk in. Do you have a slide at the end when they go? Like, it's continuing or something along those lines?
Well, kind of, I guess, implied maybe in the sending scripture or reading.
Yeah, be the church. We've started, it hasn't started here, but it's continued. You've come in from a context of a life of worship. You're leaving to a life of worship. And there's this moment, as you've said, Rusty, of recalibration, reorientation each week. In some way, do you see this as connected to Sabbath in any way? This have you ever thought about that? Or this idea of that weekly reimagining of faith? You know, we've been spending the other 6 days gaining the whole world at the risk of losing our soul, but yet that Sabbath or worship experience is that weekly opportunity to reorient. Does that connect to you at all?
Yes, we most certainly would hope it would be a moment of rest.
Yeah.
Yeah, where people would come and hear from Jesus again. Come to me, all you who are weary and heavy laden.
Yeah, wow.
And I will give you rest. And hopefully that rest then is for being sent back out. And, you know, depending on how different people in our church are practicing their Sabbath discipline, whether that's around that day or another space, that it would certainly be a support for that.
Yeah, it's beautiful. Something that occurs to me as a longtime minister, been a minister for 38 years, all in the Church of God, a charismatic type denomination. And I have, over the years, attempted to work into our worship services elements of this. And I need to ask you, there has been for a long time, for several decades now, an attractional church model that's attempting to assess the trends or what's hot out there for church that's attracting people, and then reposture ourselves so we can be attractive to people. Is this in any way a response to some kind of research you've done, like trends, like this is how to get people to church or anything like that at all? Or is this a part of attractional model, or are you saying, no, this is like anti-attractional model? How would you characterize that, just for the minister nerds out there that are wanting to know?
Well, if you attended, it'd probably answer your question pretty quickly about how much.
Why would it answer? Why would that be the case?
Well, I've got to be careful what I say.
Come on, man.
Well, I mean, it's just going to be in an old gym. Somebody probably should have bought a new. You said our tables look awful nice. Well, don't ask my wife. But anyway, there's going to be maybe a hole in the tablecloth.
Yeah.
And while those things are important, we want to be good stewards of those who come and do things with excellence. We really we really believe that the means is also a part of the message. So I can't remember if that was Marshall McKellen or if I'm saying his name right.
Explain that, means and
okay.
mission.
So if I get up there and preach a sermon that says life is messy and your worship isn't about performance, and then they walk in the door and everything's perfectly put together. And then they stare at the back of people's heads for the next hour.
You got to say that again. You got to say that again. Say it one more time. If people say that again.
Well, I'm just saying, if we tell people your lives are messy and you're as much a worshiper as we are, but everything in the way that we're doing it is the
so
opposite.
Perfect and just on time and on key and on pitch.
So that we believe, back to the James Smith stuff, like that stuff is forming people. No matter, I can get up there and preach, and I think that's important, but how we do things is just as formative, and so we come from also another stream. For us is what might be called the modern missional movement.
Okay.
And so in that movement, there's a lot of suspicion about having Sunday gatherings at all.
Okay, gotcha.
So it's big house church oriented.
Yes.
Some would say this is a distraction to actually being the church.
Okay.
Some would say if it's not a distraction, it's maybe even dangerous.
Okay.
And so we take that seriously. We just have convictions that in the New Testament, we do see a pattern of it saying the church gathered on the first day of the week.
Gotcha.
And when the church gathered, it did certain things. And it did those over and over again. And so we believe that, but we just want to shape what we do in a way that actually the containers, the vehicle, the method, the means embodies that message too, and that's why so much of it is participatory.
Okay.
And various things. Nobody would walk away from that saying, "Oh, I could never do that." I got to get a degree before I can share the gospel, or, Melanie does a great job, but probably anybody out there who's singing or whatever could be like, well, I can sing.
So I hear you saying, like, your worship service and the way you lead, Melanie, and the way you posture yourself, the way the place is set up is very accessible and home-like, comfortable for people you have a doctorate and other people are coming in are plumbers, and I think I hear you saying the plumber and the PhD would all feel pretty much on the same level in our church.
I'd hope so. And the meth addict.
And the meth, there you go.
Yeah, and that's another thing we've not talked about, but our church is intentionally situated in what would be known as an overlooked neighborhood in our city. And we could talk a lot more about how does liturgy fit into that in a missionally appropriate way. And we're still trying to work that out a lot.
Yeah.
And yet a lot of even if adding that layer on to already a couple layers people don't think go together, maybe liturgical and charismatic, is that highly missional aspect of seeking to be actually incarnationally present among the least of these.
Now, there's a lot of ministers that are watching this likely, and they're going to be wondering, oh no, if I add silence to our worship service, I may lose people. How do you, Rusty, as a lead pastor, and chime in, Melanie, if you want to, but how do you as a lead pastor concern yourself with attendance or cash, or how do you go about your pastoral ministry? Do you, like I asked earlier, is this just you attaching yourself to a trend, or is this you believing this is the church, whether anybody shows up or not?
Yeah, I'd probably, I mean, I think about those things, but we don't really think about, talk about, like, I mean, you notice if there's less people, like way less people there.
Then do you worry, oh no, maybe we should add a little more energy, or maybe we should add a little more video, or maybe...
No, we say this with all sincerity and no sort of hyper spirituality. It's just more a matter of how do we love people better. That's what we would think of.
Wow.
Not
how do we program better.
No, I mean, we're just not looking to have like random strangers show up on Sunday and give them some religious goods and services.
Okay.
And there's a lot of other churches that can do that better than we can. I don't mean that in a negative way, but...
Meaning they're more technically experts or savvy than perhaps you are.
Yeah, I mean...
You're not going for that.
No, we're not going for that. And nobody's probably going to come back week 2 if they are.
That's a very good statement. And if you're looking for that technical expertise where you walk in and everything's kind of perfect and meted out correctly and just the highest level of expertise in every area, then they're probably, you're just, that's not who you're trying to be.
Yeah, and I'm not saying that's always, it takes all different kinds of churches to reach and minister to all different kinds of people. We don't think we're the ones doing it right at all.
I get you.
But I do think fundamentally what you win people with is what you keep them with.
Okay, yeah.
And so, at least for what we feel personally called to do is people are going to walk in there and be like, oh, okay, this is highly relational. Like, if I'm going to be a part of this kingdom ecosystem, I'm going to have to invest my life here. I'm going to have to lean in. There's like, it's just not going to work for me to say, where do I come on a Sunday morning and here's some halfway decent music and a sermon and my kids can be taught a lesson and leave. Like, it isn't shaped for that.
Yeah, I can say from my own personal experience that if you do not want a relational experience, Matthew's Table is definitely not your place to come, because everything about it is intentionally structured to integrate people and network people and create relational engagement. And so I'm going to pitch it to you at this last statement, but I want to go to Melanie first, but I'm going to pitch it to you about if I'm missing anything, or is there any lingering point you think you need to make about this. But Melanie, how do you manage excellence in the context of we're not striving for that technical, tactical perfection, but we're also not looking to be sloppy either? I don't know. How do you manage that tension?
It is an interesting tension for sure. Yeah. I mean, I think if we are seeking to follow Jesus and like love God with all of our heart, soul, mind, and strength, that if we're operating in a place like in the church where God has given us gifts, I think one way of just honoring and glorifying God is doing things well. And we don't have to always do things perfectly or like the most excellent way that you might write down on a piece of paper, but I do think there's can be a heart there to want to honor God in the way that we do things. So I guess leading the music and the liturgy time, usually something goes wrong every Sunday, but it's normal and it's fine. I guess there's kind of a culture of that at our church. But also, the singers or the musicians, we make it accessible enough to where, the more beginner musicians or singers could participate in some kind of way with us on the team. But more advanced musicians can also, I guess we provide space for them to just pursue their giftings in, I guess, kind of that more spontaneous way of however you feel led to play or to sing to glorify God, then you have space to do that.
All right. I really want to glorify God with my voice, but I can't carry a tune in a bucket and never sing on key. What do you do with me? Who wants to get up and sing?
Oh man, I don't know if that's hard. I'm thinking
about auditions.
Yeah.
Or that kind of stuff, or saying, you know what, that's just, would you ever say, you've got giftings in other areas?
That's a good way to put it.
Okay.
But I think we are like relational in that way to, getting coffee with people and like talking to them and hearing their story and getting to know them and maybe hear about, other ways that maybe God has gifted them. Or
So you would draw a boundary at some point if a person is just awful. If they can't play, they think they can play piano, but they really can't, and it's always out of sync and is creating struggle, you would probably say you got to go somewhere else to find some other way to serve. Am I right?
Yeah.
Do you have that level of excellence that you...
Yeah, I think there are certain boundaries for sure.
Okay.
And I think some people, we've had some players or musicians in the past who, I guess were maybe more on the beginner side of things or like learning how to play and, tried to incorporate them. But I think they themselves like felt like that wasn't their place too. So we had space and time to like try it out to see. And then if it just didn't feel good or seem right to everyone, then they kind of, you just kind of feel it, I guess. And
it sounds very relational
Yeah.
to say, you really don't fit in this particular aspect of things. So let's look for another place for you to serve. So I hear the kindness, but I also hear the boundary as well. So that practical thing is very real for many ministers who are watching or our worship pastors. What might I be missing from this conversation that you just want to bring in at the end as we wrap up?
Our church would say that we highly value our Sunday gathering, but we're not Sunday-centric.
One more time, say it again.
We highly value our Sunday gathering, but we're not Sunday-centric.
Okay.
And so like Melanie said with our sending time, after the amen, everybody says, whoever's leading in that time will say, now go and live the church. And that's a convictional statement that we would see that the Sunday gathering is essential, at least we believe, in our bigger vision of disciple making. But as the church, we want to live as an outpost of the kingdom of God in the world. And that's really important to us. And that's not going to happen merely or maybe even primarily through the Sunday gathering.
Yeah.
The Sunday gathering, again, supports that, we think, biblically patterned and called place of reorientation and response and just gathered worship together. But everything we do is to shape people to go and live that life together so that the kingdom of God is experienced out in the world, and to our tagline, that Jesus is made known to the broken, burnout, and the bored.
Say that last line one more time.
Yeah, that the real Jesus is made known, or I add sometimes now, the known Jesus is made real to the broken, burnout, and bored.
Yeah. Well,
So,
I'm just telling you that as we're sitting here talking, I'm thinking about my opening statement about a soul transmission and having all the gears. It seems like to me, and I've experienced it myself, and you're talking about it intentionally, but every Sunday you're creating space or designing a service that will move through all of those gears, backwards and forwards, and give space for both the fast and loud and or the expressive, perhaps, expressive, and the contemplative and reflective opportunities, and everything in the middle, including an expository, exegetically sound sermon. All of it is all the gears of the soul transmission that's needed to be shifted through as a matter of recalibrating our souls every Sunday. So thank you for you both being here, Dr. Langford and also Melanie. Thank you so much for just being willing to sit with me and to share these insights. And I hope that our folks have really benefited from this conversation. I know I have. Thank you. Now, you that are watching, thank you so much for joining the Charismatic Contemplative Podcast. Again, housed at Lee University and hosted by the School of Theology and Ministry. My name is Dr. Steve Hall, signing off, and hope that you will watch again every episode that we release. God bless you. Have a great day.
The opinions or beliefs expressed in this podcast do not necessarily represent the opinions or beliefs of the Church of God or Lee University. For more information, contact Steve Hall at shall@leeuniversity.edu. Thank you for joining the Charismatic Contemplative Podcast. May your fast and loud embrace the slow and quiet. It's not either or, it's both and.